Hey, everybody, grab your cup of coffee. It's time for Living with Favor, where we talk about faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. I'm Lisa Mosbey, the host of Living with Favor. Thank you so much for tuning in today and letting me share a bit of advice. Today's special guest, Jason Sipple, is a passionate advocate for financial empowerment. And he's a dedicated mentor for individuals and families seeking to achieve lasting financial freedom. Jason can simplify complex financial concepts. His mission is to guide you on a financial journey and in the, let's call it infinite banking concept, in infinite banking. That was a new word for me. And so I was fascinated by this gentleman, and I had to scope him out on YouTube and LinkedIn and check out all the places. And I said, this is somebody that my audience needs to meet. There's so many financial secrets that he is aware of that he can share with you. And I want you to tune in, listen intently, because this man has a lot to offer for your financial legacy. Jason, welcome. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Lisa, what an introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super, super grateful to be here, and I'm excited to share and answer questions and get to know you and the audience a bit better and share some of the things that I've learned over the last 4 years when I finally took a little bit more agency of my money, realized that I had a philosophy for life, realized I had a philosophy for my marriage, for being a father, for my habits, for my spirituality, but I didn't have one for money. And I was just kind of following whatever, your broke uncle tells you, your parents tell you, a friend, like just this advice that you get along the way in commercials. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a financial philosophy, and everything I'm doing just keeps leading back to the same place, just over broke, no matter how much money I was making. I started asking better questions, and here we are together. So thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
We have two things in common. I think, we always, everybody checks each other out on social media. I don't know if you noticed on mine, but I definitely noticed on yours that those two things are: one, keeping it simple. You put that all over the place. I actually use a logo called KIS, Keeping It Simple, Solutions for Social Media. And then the other one was, it's all about love. You have that on the front page of your website. I have it in my LinkedIn profile to leave a legacy of love or lead with love on everything that you do. And I'm curious why those two things are important to you.
That's an awesome question. One, well, I mean, it's a cool t-shirt, right? Simple with Sipple. I mean,
Yeah.
that'll be merchandise or at some point. I think if someone is making things more complicated, like when you go see a financial advisor and you don't understand what they're telling you or what you're invested in or how you're going to reach retirement, or what that might look like 20, 30, 40 years from the date that you're having that conversation, I think they're not really in your best interest. That's my personal belief. If it's too complicated, then someone's making it that way so you don't feel comfortable asking questions. So you feel groomed like, oh, well, I don't know. It sounds like you know what you're talking about. I'll just go with you because you're obviously in this big building. You obviously have a really nice outfit on. And I'm just going to trust you because I want to have money like you do at some point, supposedly, right? So that's where the simple comes from. I think if it's more complicated, I think, who was it that wrote the letter? And at the end of the letter said, if I had more time, I would have written less. Right. So
Yeah.
it's that same concept. If you really understand something, you can continue to simplify. And I spend endless amounts of time looking, how can I communicate this without the jargon, without the complexity, with making it simpler for people? Because it's really not complicated. It's really about taking agency, ownership, and understanding that, hey, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Like if it's meant to change, whether it's your body, your faith, your relationships, all of those things. Like when you're always pointing the fingers outward, you got all the fingers pointing back at you. It always ends up with you. And then the second one, the love that you asked about, I mean, what else is there? Like if we look at a faith journey, if we look on a journey of adding more value to the world, the more people I get to know. I've had tens of thousands of conversations. Like I shared earlier, like before this, I placed over 3,000 people in travel positions, meaning they trusted me to leave wherever they were and go work somewhere for 13 weeks, 26 weeks, a year away from their loved ones, someplace they've never been, to serve that community. And when you speak with enough people, you start realizing that people, at least my belief is, people are good. And we all want to be around the people we love. We all want community. We are pretty simple, right? But things keep going faster and faster, which I think make things more and more complex between social media, this, and just all the different things, right? Keeping up with the speed of change. And a lot of the changes that we're experiencing are only been around for a little over 100 years, since like the turn of the century with the industrialization. So you
Yeah.
start looking all the changes since like the 1900s with food, with medicine, with money. There's a lot to navigate. So people need someone that can be trusted, that can really help them live their life to the best of their ability. So we only get to do it once, Lisa. I don't know if you knew that, but we don't get a second chance.
Yeah, none of us get out of here alive, I hear. I think that's so true with the trust of the money, though, because I've done business with people in the financial world because I came from that. I was part of my husband and I owned a stock brokerage firm for many, many years.
Mm,
And, there were people in that industry that may have been there for 20 years, but they had 1 year of experience and they just kept repurposing it. Like they weren't keeping up with the times and the changes and the things that we need today. Not to fault them, but they weren't being of the best service that they could to their clients. And what I love about what you do is you're educating the people, but you're educating yourself. You're staying up on everything that is happening in the marketplace and the different tools that are available to folks and how people can actually create that legacy for themselves. You don't have to be a millionaire to create the legacy. And that's the other thing is that this is available to almost everybody. There is a way. It may take some longer than others,
yes.
but the tool that you share and that you help folks set up, you've made it effortless in a way for people to actually take care of their financial freedom, their financial future, and set up that legacy. You emphasize pay yourself first because it's all about love. That's actually a quote from your website. It might have been from somebody's testimonial. And you encourage everyone to explore that big vision. We may not get the big vision by December of this year, but that big vision is available to all of us with a little bit of structuring and a little bit of elbow grease. There's a way to do it. And you come alongside, you partner with people to help them accomplish that. What are the first steps that someone should take when starting to build for their financial future?
I love that question. And I love how you framed it for me. And so thank you for making that an easy segue. But it really comes to what you said. It's first, it's taking the ownership. It is understanding like, okay, we're here and things haven't been working. And this is usually when I talk to people. Like I've had almost 3,000 conversations about this specific topic, about the concept of infinite banking, because it's a concept. We teach people how to fish so they can fish. Like I'm not going to fish for you, but I will walk you through. And that's what I love what we do. We'll meet you where you're at emotionally, financially. We'll weigh in together and we'll see what is the problem you're solving. There's usually 5 problems. It's usually I'm in debt, right? And I'm giving a lot of money out. Like think of the banks. Like how about this? I'm going to back up 1 second. But think of the banks. If we look at how banks actually work, I have a presentation that'll show this in more detail. But banks make, when you deposit $1 in a bank, is that an asset or a liability to the bank? It's a liability. So the banks understand the law of motion. They have to keep money in motion. They pay us very little interest that's not guaranteed. And they go out and they make 400 to 1,300% on every dollar that we, after we get paid and we work hard, deposit in the bank. And we're like, well, wait a minute, 4 to 1,300%. And you can go to F.A.V.O.R Financial and check this out, but it's shocking, right? That's a shocking statistic. And then we look and we see that of every dollar we make as Americans, we pay 35 cents to interest. That's back to the bank that we've stored our money out because they're giving us credit cards, they're giving us loans for our cars, for our mortgage, for our home, remodel. And when we start seeing what the game is, like Einstein said, you have to know the rules of the game and then play better than anyone else. Most of us haven't stopped to understand what the rules of the game are. The wealthy know. The wealthy know, like what you were doing with your previous company and what your success, like you knew at that moment, you knew how to take your money, to have discipline and how to make more money with it and how to
Mhm.
keep more money in the family. And so that is the principles we're looking to teach people, whether they're building their wealth through their debts and expenses, whether they're keeping it through all the purchases they make, whether you're buying a car, like all the cars you buy, drive, and own, or you're going on a vacation, like all the interest we do, the delayed gratification of paying for something and then paying it for months and years later. Well, I want you to do that through your own system. That takes time to build. And then creating more wealth is creating wealth through, let's see, I don't know, my wife just joined us, but creating more wealth through building, like putting your little green men to work, right? So
Yeah.
that's like the 3 steps. And I was talking about the 5 problems. It's usually debt first, then people have lazy money, right? They have their money in the bank, storing the money in the bank where it's not protected, where it's not growing tax-free, where it's just not optimal. And then those folks end up, like the banks are making more money on the money, and our money's just sitting there and it's becoming worth less and less every day. There's a couple of financial truths about money that we don't even stop to really figure out. And then the second piece, or the third problem, is all the major capital purchases, right? Buying cars, like I said, taking vacations, weddings, schools for your kids. And then from there, you have like setting your kids up for success, whether you're paying for their colleges. Like, how do we create our kids to be value creators? That's another piece that we're exploring really recently. I'm with someone I just met through another mastermind who I'm super excited, but it's going to be like a fintech creating value creation kids through teaching them values, having them do gigs at home, getting paid for these things. Like it's all the same thing. How can we teach our kids to have better financial principles and philosophies by the time they're 9, 10, 11 years old to they're 18, so they're off the bank of mom and dad by the time they're 18. And then the last piece is creating more. Like a lot of times, some of the hardest conversations I have, Lisa, are with wealthy people, like people that are millionaires, multimillionaires, because like, well, what I'm doing is working. I'm like, sure it is. But wouldn't you want to multiply that money, have it protected, guaranteed a legacy, and do what the banks are doing? Because are you wealthier than the banks are? Probably not, right? Probably not. But it takes that, it's still that paradigm shift. So the folks I usually speak with at first are the ones who it hasn't worked. They've lost money in investments. They've lost money in the market. They've tried to play the crypto game. They put their money into things that have no guarantee, and then
Guilty, guilty,
they
guilty.
come really skeptical. And one of our close friends just lost all of her money, just got it all taken, like all of her retirement money in her 50s, gone forever. Now she's a person of faith, right? And what so this is how simple it was. I asked my financial, one of my first mentors in this space, who I had known for a couple years in the personal development space, met him through the Tony Robbins world. Then we were in another ecosystem together. He's a brilliant guy. He's a fiduciary with 40 wealth management offices. He's been doing this for 20 plus years. And I finally, I broke down at the end of we were talking about this mastermind. I'll tell this story now if that's okay. So we were in the mastermind and we're doing this exercise, like, dream your big vision. How much money do you want to have? How many millions, how many billions? Where will you be? What will you be buying your family? Where are you taking them? What's that feel like? And I just started crying, Lisa. I literally broke down, started crying because I'm like, I'm failing. I'm failing my family in this moment. I'm making a third of what I was just a year before, when I had built a $25 million recruitment division and left there to help more people. But I was lost. I was lost, and I found myself building someone else's dream. Like I had been influenced to help someone else build their big mission. But I caught myself, right? I was ready to learn. And so I went to my friend and I'm like, I need a financial philosophy. And he handed me, I meant to have it next to me, but he handed me R. Nelson Nash's Becoming Your Own Banker. And it changed my life. I read it once. It's not a very long book, so don't be impressed. It's like 91 pages, lots of pictures, big font. And I read it again the next day and I called him up and I cussed him out. Like literally mad, cussed him out. Like, look, he's 6'5", so I'm glad we weren't face to face. I'm 5'10", right? But I was like, dude, like WTF? WTF? I've known you for 2.5 years. Why didn't you tell me about this previously? And he said, Sip, you were not ready. You were not ready. You were still trading time for money. You were still playing that game. You weren't ready to learn how to create a financial foundation that you build your whole life on. And there's many buckets. Like what I teach, you can either be in like, hey, we're going to build a glorified savings account. Like that's kind of step one. Like, ooh, I think this is cool. It makes sense. This is what the banks are doing. And then you go to step two. It's like, okay, now I'm going to apply this to one of the problems I shared with you, right, in the audience. And then the third step is like, you're all in. Like you're getting as many of these policies as you can. You're building your banking system. You're getting your bank on 3rd Street, 5th Street, 7th Street. You're expanding that to everything that you buy in the family. You know, your kids buy a home. It's through the mortgage of your banking system. Think of that. Like, could you imagine you're lending your kids $500,000 or $1 million to build their dream home, and now they're paying you back the principal and interest back to your family's bank? Like with a little bit of
Lost a few
patience.
people on that. I think you kind of jumped over keeping it simple because you may have lost a
Yes,
few people on that. Let's go back to
I'll go back.
teaching financial literacy to children and young adults. That was something that you popped out. Can you share like where do you mean by that? Teaching financial literacy to children and young adults. What are you doing in that arena?
Well, it's teaching them first what money is. Like money is nothing more than a means of exchange. So it's having them understand, like, hey, it's money for Pokemon, Pokemon for money for kids, money for Robux, Robux for money, right? Same as us adults, car for money, money for car. It's just a means of exchange. That's what money is. It doesn't really have inherent value unless someone gives it value. So start there.
Cool. Yep.
Cool. It's nothing more
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
and it's just going to
Yeah.
amplify who you are. Okay.
And it doesn't define who you are. It might amplify who you are. It might amplify what you can do with your skills, but it doesn't define who you are. And then how about your company's called the Founding Fathers? And I know that you work with fathers and families to ensure financial um, knowledge is passed on effectively to those kids. So what kinds of things do you have in place again in that education arena for dads to pass along that information? My dad was one of those guys. He didn't learn it from you, but somebody actually taught him about financial literacy. That's why I knew paying interest only makes other people wealthy. You got to pay yourself the interest and figure out how to do that. And that's really the arena that you live in.
Yes,
So how do you do that for
you're
dads?
either paying interest or earning interest, right? That's what your dad taught you. That's
Hmm.
awesome. That's awesome you had that. Like a lot of like I didn't have that. Like my dad taught me a lot of great things. Show up first, leave last, work hard, be humble. And that was the formula for 46 years. You know, and it got to a certain level of success, but I was still living not paycheck to paycheck, but that's what it felt like. It always felt scarce. It didn't feel like there was true abundance. It felt like I was just hanging on. And that's really what I'm the first step I'm looking to help dads with is really to shift that feeling, to just know that there's more possible, to know that they can go on a vacation, that their kid gets a giant ice cream that they're not going to eat or a toy they'll never play with again. It's okay. It's love, it's fun, it's the moment, it's the magic.
What we use the tool for, the money.
It's
It's
what
the reason that we
we
work hard so that we can have those experiences.
and
Yeah.
having conversations around money. I mean, that's something my wife and I have done in the last year and a half. We have a money meeting every Tuesday, actually at this time. So soon this is over, we will have our money meeting just to talk about what's going on in our family finances. And we share, our finances with our boys. Like my son asked me at breakfast this morning, Dad, how much have you made this month? And I told him. Like I told him exactly. I mean, he's like, Dad, that's not that good. I'm like, it's, hey, we're entrepreneurs, right? And this is a journey. Last year at this time, there was more acceleration. This year, we've gone back to build some more foundational things to accelerate the journey to reach more impact. But he has to see that things go up and down. And it's all about, he sees me coming on a webinar or a podcast or going to different webinars or doing a weekly webinar myself to educate more people about the principles and having those conversations around money and what they really are and what they're for. And he has a system where, he'll do a gig around the house, like pulling weeds, for example. He'll do it once a month and might pay him, $5 to $8 to do that. And we have a technology, like the partnership that I'm putting in place. I have a technology now where I have a parent's wallet and the money goes to the wallet and then I pay him and then it's split into three buckets into
Oh,
save, spend, and tithe and give. So like it breaks it down in percentages. So as a young child, you start seeing like, okay, I earned this money. I'm going to pay myself first. I'm going to enjoy some now. I'm going to save some for my future self. And I'm going to give just to remind myself how blessed I am to help others. So
I don't know about this secret. I'm going to get the lowdown on that. Is that an app?
it is. It's called Gravy Stack at the moment. It'll be called Dinner
Okay.
Table shortly. So
So you haven't launched it yet.
No, it's already exists. So Gravy
It
Stack, you
does.
can already go download the app, start playing around with it, using it. It's
Okay.
something that I'm bolting on the founding fathers because my mission was to
Ah,
inspire and educate 10 million fathers and their families to avoid financial illiteracy or financial slavery, you pick, to live their legacy and to make a positive impact on the communities. Like I have this crazy dream that if there's enough families, enough men in communities practicing what I teach, America will change. And I just happened to meet this guy, Scott Donnell, last five, Lisa, this is how life is happening for you. Last 5 minutes of a mastermind, day and a half mastermind in Laguna Hills, California. I kind of didn't want to go. I'm like, I got so much to do as, an entrepreneur, family guy. I'm like, I don't want to be away from my family. But we're standing there and it's just amazing mastermind. And this guy comes out and he's so fired up. He just got off a Lewis Howes podcast. I think his podcast will be out June 10th. So coming up soon. I'll keep you posted on that so you can share that. But he was on Lewis's podcast. He said it was the longest interview he's ever done. It was like over an hour and a half long. And he's like, he just kept peeling the onion on, peeling the onion. So I just asked him, like, well, about what? Like, what do you do? Like, I didn't know who he was. He's a real tall guy, like 6'4", young guy, right? Super energetic, great energy. And I liked him right away. And he says, I am going to disrupt the financial literacy by teaching kids how to become value creators, how to not have their hands out, how to be off the bank of mom and dad by 18. And I was like, oh my God, we have to talk. Like, we need to have a conversation. And so then he goes, okay, do you have Insta? And I was like, wait, like, I'm 49. I was like, do we exchange information like this? I'm used to like taking a picture of someone, like going on the south. So I was like, all right, he's blowing me off. Cool. Like, he seemed like a nice guy. But we connected on Insta. We ended up having a conversation 3 days later. And he tells me what he's up to. I was like, oh my God, like I was teaching, I had made up all these fun stories like Sally Saver, Johnny Detter, and how they fall in love and they take the best of both of them, become wealth creators. And I was teaching it to third and fourth graders last year at my son's school. And so when I heard what he was doing, I was like, this is the perfect system for the legacy that I want people to be able to create for themselves, to have that family office. Because there's still many, many, many layers to unpack. Like we're keeping it simple, but the journey is one step at a time. And the first is just asking yourself better questions. It's understanding that there is a path that you're not taught, but it's available to you. You just have to ask.
What are some common misconceptions about managing personal finances that infinite banking helps us to dispel?
That's a great question. I think the biggest one is, and this is something that Garrett Gunderson talks about in Killing Sacred Cows. Okay. I mean, that's a great book. It was a New York Times bestseller. But he talks about the accumulation theory. He talks about how people are scrimping and saving and hoping for one day, someday. Like I would just challenge people if you're putting money in a qualified plan, I'm not saying they're bad, 401ks, IRAs, but understand they've only been around since 1980, like in effect, since 1980. And we don't see a ton of success. Like if you look up statistically, 95% of people that are retiring without financial stability, meaning that they have to go back to work at 65, 67, 69, whenever they retired. And I don't think that's people's dreams. So while we're like, I guess you call it maybe the ostrich effect, people are like sticking their heads in the ground. They just keep working harder and harder, giving their money to someone else, and then trusting that it's going to work out. Like I talked to a guy yesterday. He's like, well, young kid, like 35. And he's like, hey, well, yeah, well, the S&P, historically, the market, I'm like, okay, like what do you actually know about where your money's invested, the companies? Well, I don't, but historically over time, I'm like, okay, so you have a nest egg now. Like this is how it is. Like imagine you and I are partners, Lisa. We just decide today, like we're going to be partners, but this is how it's going to work. You're going to grow the business. You're going to take the business to the moon. You're going to go out with the win-win women's network. You're going to go with all of the things you're creating, all the people you're coaching, all the ecosystems you're part of, and you're going to scale this. You're going to take this beautiful dream of bringing more love to people, more faith to people, more certainty to people. And you're going to take this from the company it is today to a multi-million to $100 million to close to $1 billion company. And you're going to do that over the next 20 years. And I'm your partner, remember, I'm super supportive. I have no problem with everything you're doing. I think it's wonderful. In fact, I think it's so good, I'm not even going to bother you. I'm not going to check in. I'm not going to see how things are going. I'm not going to worry about anything. But when you're ready to use that money, when you're ready to stop and sell and start living that life that you've been dreaming about, I'm going to come in and remind you that we're partners. And now in our agreement, I didn't tell you, in our agreement, there was no agreement about how much of this harvest that you've developed from the seed that's going to be mine. But I'm going to decide. I'll decide based on my needs 20 years from now. So like I've just been a regular F it all kind of guy for this 20 years. I have no money. I've been just giving money away. I've been doing a lot of ridiculous things with my money that have no discipline at all. So I'm gonna be like, Lisa, I need 35% of what you've made. And guess what? You have to pay me for it because you've agreed to that contract. How long would you want that partnership to go on? Not very long, right?
You certainly wouldn't want to grow your business that whole time and knowing that you're giving it up. So, and it's
Yeah.
the same. So you're applying this to the concept of people giving a banker or a brokerage house your money and not knowing what percentage they're going to take over those many years of accumulation.
We're doing it to defer. We're deferring it. And it's a nice word to mean delaying taxes. You're delaying taxes. You're hoping taxes are going to be less. And guess what? The only way taxes are less when you retire is if you're making less money. So if you dream of a smaller lifestyle, then you're doing the right thing. If you're not, I'm just asking you to start thinking about if you can have your money growing in an environment where it's tax-free, the growth is tax-free, the loans are tax-free, it's protected against liens and judgment. You have the same access to it as you would in a bank. You can use the money whenever you want for whatever you want. You never have to jump through hoops to use it. And it's going to protect your family in the future. The second guarantee is it's going to have a guaranteed legacy piece, a guaranteed tax-free, estate, if you will. So if you're not planning estate planning and those kind of things, this will keep it out of probate. This will protect your family. So back to love. And then you don't want to create entitled children, which is why we're creating wealth creators. And then you'll have other stipulations in place for that to kind of waterfall effect, more complex, but more like the Rockefeller method, right? Where they've set generations and generations and generations up because they understood what it was to have a value creation kid. They're not just having trust fund kids going, give me.
Everybody has to contribute to it. Two questions. When does somebody start this? And the second one, what are the first steps someone should take to actually start building their private money system using the principles of infinite banking?
Well, everyone I talk to, right? Everyone that goes down this rabbit hole, one of the things that all 3,000 people have said is, I wish I would have known about this earlier. So it goes back to, the Chinese proverb, like, when's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. When's the second best time? It's today. So depending where you're at in your journey, like if you've just started learning about this, I want you to learn a lot more. I want you to read Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. I have a ton of videos. My partners have even more videos. We give away our best education for free. So the first step is just learning about it. Go read about it, go learn about it, and understand it's not through IULs. Why? Because an index universal life, the person in control, like I want you in control of your money, Lisa. I want you to be the only way this doesn't work. Like I want you to have that kind of radical ownership. So I'm just throwing this out there because people are going to go research it and they're going to find people saying that you can do it through IULs and you can't. You can't. I mean, I guess you could, but you don't have control. Like the insurance company still can turn two knobs on that and change all of the things that you need to be guaranteed to have this be really effective. So first is education. Go learn about it. Go to jasonsipple.com. Go to my YouTube channel. Go read Nash's book. Go to the Money Multiplier. That's one of the partnerships I have with some other mentors I have that have been doing this for decades now. So there's a lot of education. And then what was the second question? I know there was two parts of this question.
How does the like what are the steps that people take to start to build their private money system?
Ooh, it goes back to the first thing we talked about. We have to pay ourselves first. And what do I mean by that? That's, think about the first two commandments, right? It's what? One's love God, heart, mind, and soul. Two is love thy neighbor like
Mhm.
thyself. What's that imply? It implies God, us, neighbor. Look where all your money is going first. I'm not making anything wrong, but your money is going to the grocery guy, the car guy, the house guy or woman. Your money is going to someone else first. So when you earn money, you have to pay yourself first. And you want to be paying yourself enough to start building your financial system. So I usually say it depends. Like there's different trains of thought of this, but I usually say, hey, it's at least 10,000 a year or 833 a month is what someone wants to pay themselves. Because if we look, our car payments are usually $500, $600, $700. So how do you take back control of that? And you start thinking about the things that you're financing. So you want to pay yourself first. That's simple. So just start paying yourself every month and celebrate it. You pay yourself, if you're not saving anything, you pay yourself 300, celebrate. And then just work towards those goals and just have that vision in mind. Like, okay, I'm building a system. And then it's just having a conversation. Like once someone's ready to start, it's an application process because you will work with a mutually owned dividend paying whole life company. Like it's not me. You're never sending money to myself or the money multiplier or any of us. You're partnering with companies that have been profitable for 147 years consecutively or 160 years consecutively. Like every year, like Lisa, that's impressive. Profitable every year with a $120 billion company. That's pretty crazy. So
Yeah, you don't see it very often.
no.
Uh, probably should take this off air, but I'll throw the question out there and you can decline to answer it. When you're paying yourself first, is that money coming out of taxes that you might pay pay to the government when you're paying yourself first? Or are you still paying everything else and then you have to take this from your household budget to start to pay yourself first?
I love that question. It depends. I'll answer this question here because we do a show every Wednesday called Ask Me Anything. We'll answer any question, like it's at 4:30 Eastern every Wednesday. And that is it's a great question. So actually last year, can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, sure.
So end of the year last year, we had right around Thanksgiving, our company got approved to be an S Corp. We had applied months and months
Mhm.
earlier and we changed to S Corp status. And we were like, yay! And then we got and you owe, 20,000 plus in payroll taxes on 12/15, and then another 20 some $1,000 on 1/15/2024.
Oh.
And so I was like, yay, we're an S Corp. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? And we had been paying ourselves the taxes, like saving it in a savings account.
Mhm.
And so what I did on, that week of 12/15, I stroked the check to Uncle Sam to the IRS and paid that money. Lisa, will I ever earn money on that money again?
No,
No, that money's gone forever. Do you
you can
know?
drive the roads though.
I got down on my hands and knees that night. I was mad. Like it was not cool to be in our household that night. I know I seem happy and I'm like, I was mad. I was not fun to be around. I was ticked off. I was really upset. And I was like, what is the solution here? And so I started an additional policy on myself, on my body, to be for payroll taxes. So so I overfunded because I wanted access to the money in the first 30 days. I took the rest of the tax money I had sitting aside in a savings. I rushed and put a policy in place, got it done before the end of the year. And then I ended up pulling a loan out and paying the 114 from my policy. So now
Mhm.
that money is earning, that $20,000 is earning me a guaranteed interest. It's most likely going to earn me dividends. And it just protected my wife and my boys to another level. Like it brought us from having a couple $1 million in coverage to I have like over $3 million of tax-free benefit to my family in place now.
Wow.
So, and I did it. There's on my YouTube channel, there's a video on it, how to get paid to pay your taxes or how to get paid paying your taxes, I think it's called. And by the third year, because it's a marathon, it's not like you have instant access to all the money. But by year 3, every dollar I put into my privatized banking system, I'll have more than a dollar I can use, which means that the money that I would have been saving in my savings, right? This is for business owners, for taxes. Yes, I didn't have all of it to pay all my taxes in year 1 and year 2, but by year 3, I'll put the money in there and I'll be able to pull out more than I need. And every year that's going to increase. So you can, depending on, like I always say, it's changing one thing. It's where your surplus, where your savings go first. But depending on how you're paying taxes and what kind of business you have, it depends, is that answer. It depends on your discipline. It depends on your vision. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But you can do it in a number of ways, which goes back to someone taking agency and ownership and having the creativity to understand that there's more than just one game plan.
Beautifully said. Whether it's downturns, taxes, saving for the future, or buying a car with cash from your own bank, there is a way to set up your financial legacy, your financial future. And if you need someone to come alongside you to explain this concept, to get started on it, there's a couple of places to step into this. One, Jason mentioned he has an amazing YouTube channel. There are so many resources. I've watched a number of videos just for me personally, but also in preparation to do this interview. But I kind of went down a rabbit hole. I'll admit he makes it fun, entertaining. His energy is just contagious. So if you want to learn about this, start there. Start at the YouTube channel level. Take advice from him. Read those books that he suggested because it's going to give you the framework, an overview of what it is you need to know about developing and creating that legacy, that financial future that you want for yourself. Any final thoughts that you would like to share with our folks before we wrap these up?
A million of them, a million of them. And this
You
is a
get
lot.
one.
Yeah, I get one. I have a million thoughts going in my head right now. Lisa, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be here, to be able to have this conversation with you because I shared this when we met. I was visualizing having the opportunity to speak more about this. How do you reach more people? How do you change millions of lives? You start having people understand that there is a more optimal, more efficient way that they can reach their goals. It's a paradigm shift. If you guys here's a thought for you. If you want to understand how your habits really work, go YouTube riding a backwards bicycle. Watch that video and you'll see how deep the grooves are in our brains over time. But if you want to make a shift, it's a pattern interrupt. It's thinking differently. It's asking better questions. So if you want ownership, if you want to take back control of your money, it's possible. It's not too good to be true. It just seems that way. But this is what the wealthiest families have been doing. There'd be no Disney World if there wasn't for specially engineered whole life. There'd be no McDonald's. That might be a good thing, but there'd be no Pampered Chef. There'd be no, there's all of these things that have been built by people that were creators, that were visionaries, that had faith, that had love to give more to the world. So I would say if you're coming from that place and you want to know how, then just go to my website, jasonsipple.com, go to the YouTube channel and start learning. It doesn't have to be with me either. Like there's a lot of other folks out there teaching this, so I'm not attached, but go just learn. Give yourself that power and make the time. Just make the time to learn this. It's changed my life forever. So thank you, Lisa, again. Super blessed to be here.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today. Folks, if we're here to uncover secrets for you. That's what this is all about, is how do we better our lives and become empowered by information? So let us continue to uncover secrets. I hope you come back again for a little bit more of advice. In the meantime, if you need some assistance with your digital marketing, with setting up or getting started to enhance, getting started in your business or building your brand, expanding your brand online using social media, I would love to have a conversation with you and review what it is that you're doing. Simply go to lisamosbey.com, and that's Lisa, MOSBEY.com, and we can chat for about 30 minutes. You can book a call with me. There's a button on there, and we'll dive deeper into what it is that you should be doing in your business, things that we can maybe improve and find that money so that you can start building your financial legacy next month. All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Come on back. Thanks for being here.